Okay, my next guest facing off with former Vice President Joe Biden and Senator Sanders over climate change, proposing some bold federal actions if he is elected president.
And we're going to have to force it, and then we're going to have to direct federal dollars to make sure that those units are affordable so that working people can live in places and not be spending 50% of their income on rent. Climate is the #1 priority for me. It's a state of emergency, and I would declare a state of emergency on day one.
Okay, talking about housing affordability and climate change, many other things tonight. Joining me now, 2020 Democratic presidential candidate. Welcome back to Fox News at Night, Tom Steyer. Good to have you back, sir.
Nice to be here.
Okay, so you have spent a lot of time and a lot of money talking about impeachment, which is now where we are. You're out there on the campaign trail. It's playing out here back in Washington, D.C. Here is what the president has said about how this thing is going, how he feels it's going.
So we have no due process. We can't have anything. And yet, not only did we win today, it's over. And some of the fair press, of which there isn't too much, said this thing is over.
All right, Tom, last time you and I talked, you said it was important that this thing go public. You thought it was important for the Democrats to take it public, for the American people to see and hear from these folks. And yet both sides are declaring victory. Do you think it's moving the needle at all? And is there a need to convince the American people before this vote actually happens?
Look, I think that what is happening is what should be happening, which is we're getting people talking on TV and telling the truth. That's what we saw today. We saw someone who is in the administration, who's not a never-Trumper, who's not a deep state person, who's someone who's a big supporter of Mr. Trump, coming out and saying, yes, there was a quid pro quo and everybody knew it. So what the American people do with that information is absolutely critical. But the process of getting the information out directly so we all can watch it and understand it and take it in is exactly what I've been pushing for, because what I believe in is the American people. And I believe that we are the correct court here, that we are the people who matter. And so this is exactly what should be happening as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, so Ambassador Sondland today, to be clear, says no one ever told him, including the president, there was any connection between these conditions and Ukraine. When he was pressed on that, he said it was his presumption. So that's out there now. The American people, as you said, it's great that they can watch. We can all watch and see what's going to happen, what has happened, and make decisions before these votes go down. Now, listen, you know you have critics out there who think you may have an unfair advantage ending up on these debate stages. I want to read something from Max Burns. His tweet on this. He says, it's a perverse state of affairs in the Democratic Party when a public servant with policy chops of Julian Castro misses the debate threshold, but billionaire vanity candidate Tom Steyer can effectively buy his way onto the stage. How do you respond?
Look, I think there's a very serious question here for everybody running to be the Democratic candidate, and that's this. Do you have something to say that's true and differential and important? And do people trust you to be the messenger to make that happen in the real world? I think that's the case for every single person who's running to be the Democratic candidate. I think it's true for me. I think it's true for Julian Castro. And so as a result, that's the question. I've spent a decade putting together coalitions of ordinary American citizens to take on unchecked corporate power. I have a history of taking them on. We have a history together of beating them. And so, you know, I've actually, as an outsider, been working successfully in the public arena for a decade. And in fact, I've built one of the largest grassroots organizations in the United States that did the largest youth voter mobilization in American history last year.
Well, and let me ask you this, though. I mean, there are a lot of folks who look at what you've done, look at the work there. They look at this field, and there are whispers that there are concerns. There's not a candidate currently standing on the stage strong enough to beat the president. So a fellow billionaire of yours, Michael Bloomberg, getting in, former Massachusetts Governor Deval Patrick, looks like they both are starting to formalize some things. What does that say to you as somebody who is currently in the field and is making the argument that you are the one who can beat President Trump?
Well, I think two things. I think you're right that it means that this race is wide open. I think that's absolutely true. I think the other thing that's true is this. Look, I spent 30 years building an international business, a successful, big international business. So I believe whoever the Democratic candidate is going to have to go toe-to-toe with Mr. Trump or whoever the Republican candidate is on the economy.
Wait.
That's
Do you have
gonna
any
be
expectation
something
it wouldn't be
we're gonna
President
have
Trump?
to show. Well, if he gets impeached and thrown out of office, I don't think he'll be the candidate.
Okay.
But I think whoever it is, we're going to have to show that we know how to produce growth, we know how to produce prosperity, that we are competent, successful stewards of the American economy. And that's something that I spent 3 decades doing. I think I have a completely different resume and a completely different understanding of that than any other Democrat on this stage. I think I can go toe-to-toe on the economy with Mr. Trump. I feel very comfortable critiquing and taking him down on his economic policies, with which I dramatically disagree and which I think are very bad for the American people.
Well, you both are very successful businessmen. It would be an interesting conversation. So we'll see you out there on the campaign trail. Tom Steyer, thanks for coming back tonight. Good to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a treat to talk to you.